before we get into anything, like I just gotta say, I love these type of movies. Thriller comedies. I've been watching a lot of them recently. Even the new Hard Eyes that came out as well. I really enjoyed
Oh
it.
yeah. I
Yeah,
haven't seen that. That looks good. I think I know the director. That's a little more horror though, right?
a little
That's
more
kind of
horror,
more
but I
horror
don't know. So
genre. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just desensitized. I don't know. I consider it a thriller just because I wasn't scared at all.
I'm such a chicken. I'm really scared of horror movies, so I don't watch them usually. But now that I know that I will watch Hard Eyes, now that I know it's not terrifying.
This movie in particular, it has a really unique premise. Like the idea of a dating app serial killer sounds like something that like can actually happen in real life, which is really scary. I've actually read about some similar cases, not quite like how it was in the movie. Since you're a big true crime fan, were there any specific cases or news stories or like investigations that helped influence this story or how you approached directing it?
I mean, not one in particular. I do think there was I do consume a lot of true crime, and obviously my favorite murder is a great podcast that I listen to a lot, and I think that definitely like helped inspire a lot of the podcast element of it that kind of worked as like a voiceover through the movie. Um, but you know, I think all of the cast has all of us have like dating stories, night horror stories, online dating stories. So there was no shortage of personal experiences to pull from for the comedy, as well as for some of the red flags. So I think we all kind of brought our own perspective and lived experiences to it, which made them then worthwhile. It's like, oh, okay, now it's okay that all these terrible dating things happened because it helped inform this movie. So that's like a positive spin on it.
And I read that Serial, that was the show that first got you into true crime. Is that true?
Yeah. The Serial podcast, which I mean, I'm not sure what year that even was. It was maybe like 2007, 2008. I'm not sure when that came out, but that was the first podcast that I really got into. I listened to comedy podcasts, or like I listened to Mark Maron. I had listened to a lot of podcasts, but that was the first like podcast where I was like addicted to it. Like I couldn't wait to hear what would happen next. And what's crazy is that case has still been kicking around. The Adnan Syed case is like still kicking around. So I feel like that had a pretty big impact on everyone. I feel like that opened up the gates to more and more true crime podcasts happening. Um, and Dateline, I'm like an old school Dateline fan. I could watch Dateline all day, every day.
What I really love as well, I seen another interview that you did. You were talking about being an advocate for female directors, and obviously you've had such a successful career, and there have been so many great females in film, like Sofia Coppola, Catherine Bigelow, Greta Gerwig, Mary Herron, just to name a few. So many who have made such an impact, obviously. But who are some of your favorite female directors, ones that you've looked up to?
I mean, I think the cool thing is now I know like a lot of the comedies I grew up watching that I watched over and over again. As when I watched them, I didn't know they were female directors. Like I didn't know Amy Heckerling
For
was
Fast
Amy
Times, Ridgemont
Heckerling.
High, is that
Yeah, exactly.
one of my
And I
favorites?
don't
Yeah.
think it's so great. And you don't know like somebody was telling me the other day, I forget was it Tommy Boy was directed by a woman? There was just never press about the fact that there were women directing these comedies. So what's been cool is to realize comedies I loved growing up were actually directed by women. And now there's more and more, like more and more women are involved in making content, and they're advocating for women to direct it as well. I'm a huge Tina Fey fan. Everything she does is so brilliant. I'm very, very inspired by her. I do feel like sometimes when writing stuff, I'll be like, in my head, I'm like, would Tina Fey like this? I do think that's like my litmus test on comedy. Um, so I think that's been a huge influence. And Greta Gerwig, the great thing is there's more and more women doing comedy because like some of the women you listed, Sofia Coppola, is so amazing. They're more known as like dramatic directors, and I think there's more and more attention being paid to female comedy directors, which I think is huge, and it's like been a long time coming. So shout out to Greta Gerwig for really, Barbie broke down some doors, and that's awesome.
Oh, I know I shouldn't be shy to say this, but I kind of teared up at that movie, especially like near the end. It was a really good movie. I'll be honest. At first, I was like, ah, it's gonna be probably corny, Barbie. But you know what? I really enjoyed it. It was very well
It was
done.
great. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah, and then you brought up Amy Heckerling. I think she also did a Night at the Roxbury, which is also a comedy as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
one of
she's
the
like a prolific comedy director, and like, I'm not sure why she's not getting Kennedy Center honors. You know what I mean? Like, we need to get Amy Heckerling some sort of honorary.
when you do talk to up and coming female directors, I guess what's a piece of advice you've been giving them?
It's so hard. I think it's like a combination of luck and timing and talent. So I think the best thing you can do, I mean, on a very base level for like very new people who are just interested, I think a very important thing to do is be on set all as much as possible, because I think there's an element of set etiquette and how everybody carries themselves on a set and the chain of communication, and that I think you don't learn necessarily in film school or in classes. That is a very important part of it. So the more exposure to being on set in whatever capacity, the better. I also think for me, there was like a frustrating period of knowing how I wanted stuff to look, but not being actually able to deliver that exactly. It never looked like I wanted it to in my head. And that was part of the learning process. And the only way to get better at that is to keep doing it. So I'd say everybody's going to hit that point when they're starting out, and just stick with it. Like, don't quit. Just stick with it. Keep making stuff. Um, Pay attention to visual stuff. Like, I watch movies or TV shows with the sound off all the time, because
Okay,
that
interesting.
is like, it's kind of a good way to learn the the back end of filmmaking, like what the end product looks like, which you kind of have to know as you're making it. Like, and part of that is, I also spent a lot of time in edits on projects. When I first started out, I started out in promos, making like short form content, and I was involved in the editing a lot, which I think helps in your director brain, because you're making real time decisions on set, kind of knowing how it would edit in post. And I think watching content with the sound off, and I do that because I'm too distracted by it. Like, I'm such a consumer of content that if I watch something with the sound on, I'll get sucked into it and forget to pay attention to the visuals. So I have to watch it with the sound off, and I kind of use that as like a study guide sometimes, or inspiration. I think those are like the important things. Just and finding your voice, and having confidence on set is like, and being on set is a great way to do that. I think you just have to have a clear, you have to have a clear idea of what you want to do and be able to communicate it clearly. And that is in itself an art form you have to learn as a director.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also not being afraid to fail. Like you mentioned, even just having the experience on set. And that's the perfect place. And I know I shouldn't say perfect place because, no one wants to fail while they're on a job or anything. But I wouldn't even say like you're failing or messing up. It's just about learning. You have to go through those things in order
Sure.
to get to where you need to be. There's never somebody, an acclaimed director, actor. There's no one who's ever said, "Yeah, I've done everything perfect and I got here easy breezy."
Right.
There,
Yeah.
there was a video I saw. It was like Michael Jordan. He was saying like, I missed 900 shots in my career. I missed 36 times. I was supposed to take the winning shot and I missed. He's like, I failed over and over, and that's why I succeed. So I think that's something that's always resonated with me, and I think that's one thing I think people should always look at as well, is not being afraid to to fail. So
Yeah. Just hopefully it's when there's lower stakes, not on the high stakes.
exactly. That's why I was like,
Yeah.
imagine you're
Fail
working
when it's
for.
low stakes.
Can you imagine you're working for like some like it's like your first time working for like an acclaimed director or something, and then you just yeah, that's the
Right.
worst time to do that. But
But I do think part of the safest way to fail, ideally when there's lower stakes, is to always surround yourself with people who know what they are doing and are great at what they do, and let them do that. Especially as a director, it's like when you're hiring a crew, or when you're choosing a crew, choose very smart, talented people, and then let them be smart and talented. Like, you don't have to micromanage a DP. You should be collaborating with the DP. And sometimes that collaboration involves saying, you know what, I'm not sure about this. What do you think? Or
Mhm.
especially when you're starting out, it's like, I'm not familiar with these lenses. Tell me a little about them. Or I'm not familiar with this filter. What does this filter do? I think it's okay to do that, and people appreciate that. I think there's this misconception that if you admit to not knowing something, that it's going to be looked upon as a failure. And the reality is, pretending you know something and then something going wrong is a much bigger problem on set because every minute is money. And so I think just saying up front, hey, I need a little help with this, people will respond positively to that. And at the end of the day, everybody wants to go home on time.
Yeah,
And like, and the whatever you can do to foster that is going to be celebrated.
of
So I
course.
think that is a part of filmmaking that people don't really talk about as much.
You mentioned about like collaborating, and obviously you had such a great team on this film. I want to talk about the cinematography as well in this film because it really does pull you into the true crime world with the visuals. Like I know true crime documentaries, they often have that like distinct like moody aesthetic, the dark lighting, the ominous reenactments, and Jonathan Hall did a great job as a cinematographer on this. What kind of discussions did you have with him when you guys were first doing this project?
What's great is Jonathan and I have worked together before. This was our second movie together. And so we have this great working relationship. It's very collaborative. And um, I am a person who collects a lot of visuals to start the conversation so that, I shared a lot of references with him. The important thing to me is that I wanted the movie to look like a thriller so that we could push the comedy. So like no matter how funny something was, you wouldn't forget that you were watching a thriller that also had a mystery. Um, and and so a lot of the references I gave him were like from Hitchcock. Obviously, there was like some Rear Window, some Vertigo, and then a lot of actually Gone Girl was a big
Oh, I love that movie.
reference
Yes, love that movie.
and the color palette of that, it was like so greenish and what I realized is like I was like, how do we put a modern spin on Hitchcock? And a lot of the color palette in those Fincher movies is kind of similar to the color palette of Hitchcock movies. It's like blues and tans that are a little bit muted and dirty, and it kind of looks like that. So that was like a big reference for the color and the lighting, the moodiness, and so that started the conversation. And then Jonathan created a unique LUT, which is like that's like basically, I don't know if people know what a LUT is, but the lookup table. It's like when you're shooting, you can put a color correct on the footage so that when you're watching it in the monitor, you're seeing what it could look like after the movie's finished, as opposed to just looking at, a slapped on color correct that just balances everything and makes it neutral. So he created this custom LUT that was in this world so that even while we were shooting, everybody could see on the monitor, oh, this is what it'll look like when it's finished. And that I think was super helpful for everybody. The production designer, the actors, everybody got an idea of like, oh, tonally, this is what it's going to look like. Cool. Now I get like that helped inform, I think, a lot of it. And then we were able to just like push the comedy and worry about performances while we were shooting.
Obviously, you've done such an excellent job in comedy in general. I know with Girl Code, you directed that. You also were a head writer on that too, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what's interesting is like to balance both genres, comedy and thriller. I guess what was the biggest challenge you had when doing that in this film?
I mean, I think the thing I was most concerned about and therefore planning for, because I'm a planning person.
Hmm.
I do a lot of work in prep. Is I didn't want it to skew so far one way or too far the other way, where it was like too funny, and then you forgot that we couldn't make there was like real things happening. There's like an assault and there's some deaths, and it's like you don't want to joke directly about a serial killer. So, and also I didn't want the thriller part to go so far that you forgot that it was a comedy, or you were like, if you weren't interested in the mystery of it, that you kind of tuned out. So I was like, I really wanted to find that balance, and that's what I was most concerned about. And in doing that, what I ended up doing is for two of the characters in particular, which, spoiler if you haven't seen it yet, there is a twist at the end, but for Kelly's character and for Norman's character, we would do takes that we would basically do a take that was like, okay, lean into the thriller of this, make this a little scarier. And then we'd be like, okay, do one take where I'd say like, oh, especially with Norman, it would be like, okay, now do the next one, play it for comedy. And let's just find the funny in this scene. And so when we went into post, I had both options. Like basically, there was two different versions of Norman through the movie. There was a ominous version and then there was a comedy version. Like the perfect example is the scene where she goes to look for something at his house and she's pretending she's looking for an earring, but she's trying to find DNA because she
Mhm.
thinks she's trying to prove that he is the serial killer. And he gets really kind of dark and she runs out of there. And there's like this implication that he might chase after her. That was like the first or second take. Then we did a take where like at the end, after she like kind of distracts him by jumping on him and kissing him and like she's pulling hair to get DNA, then she runs out and we had this one version where he makes a joke about having a boner, like I guess I gotta sit here for 10 minutes, and it was like very funny. But then once you start cutting it together, you're like, oh, that this is too funny. This scene doesn't need a punch at the end. This doesn't need a joke at the end. It's undermining the thriller thing. So we truly have two versions of the movie, and that was my plan. I wanted to make sure that in the edit there was both versions because I knew we wouldn't know until we were editing it how to find that perfect balance. So I wanted to go in with both options. And that really was a testament to Sammer, who played Norman, to his range, because he was able to do, in the same scene, two completely different versions of the character. And that's why it works.
Yeah, that reminds me so much about American Psycho. I'm not. I'm sure you might know this is a fun fact if the audience doesn't know. It basically Willem Dafoe, when he's having that interaction with Patrick Bateman in Patrick Bateman's office, they filmed it, I think, three different ways, and then they intercut that scene with all the three takes. So it's funny how you mentioned that, how like you filmed it
Oh,
different ways as well, and you could have got a whole different outcome. So that it just kind of reminded me of that. I thought that was really interesting.
yeah, that's great. I did not know that. I didn't know
Yeah.
that about the
I hope it's a
American
real
Psycho.
fact. I read it, but who knows, right? Because any
Yeah,
movie online nowadays. But
we'll
yeah,
we'll
I heard
assume
it.
it is because it's very perfect for this story,
Yeah,
so it's real.
there was one that they said like, yeah, like Willem Dafoe's character. They did one take where it's like he didn't think Patrick Bateman was the killer. One that he knew he was the killer, and one I think that I forgot the last one. But like, and then they intercut, and then when you rewatch it, you go, oh, like certain lines that he's saying, you go, okay, that's the take
Yeah,
where he did this. That's the take where he did that. So I always have
that's
to,
great.
yeah.
It kind
And
of keeps you on the edge of your seat then.
of course, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you want every movie to do that, every thriller at the end of the day, to keep you on your toes. And I think nowadays too, especially with comedy and thrillers, there's been a huge like demand for it. I noticed. Like I feel like everybody wants to see that, and there's been so many good movies like that coming out. But why do you think everyone's craving this type of genre? Like, what do you think it is that people are so infatuated with?
Well, I think like a great example is Knives Out. Knives Out is just I think people want the mystery. They want a whodunit. They want to be invested in the story, but then also want to laugh all the way through it. And I think it allows for quirky characters and like you can have more fun with the characters. So I think that's part of it. I also think there's been such a lack of true comedies coming out that the only way to get comedy anymore is for it to be mixed with something else. So it's like everybody still wants to see comedies, but there's less and less true, just a great rated R solid comedy. Less and less of those are being made for some reason. So you kind of get your comedy fix by horror comedy or thriller comedy or
Mhm.
action comedy and all these cross genre movies. And it's great because it's allowing comedy to still exist and be made. Do I miss the like Will Ferrell or Judd Apatow or just straight up rated R comedies? Yes, so much. I hope they make a comeback. I would love to make more of those. But in the meantime, there's something really cool about these cross genre movies because as a filmmaker, you also get to do really visually cool stuff. Like I don't know if I could have made just a straight like comedy and had it look like this movie looked. The thriller part of it justified me making this like moody, dark looking movie. If there wasn't that element, it maybe would have felt out of place for the movie. So, like as a director, I love it. I love doing these cross genre movies. As
Yeah.
a as a consumer of comedy, I do miss the rated R comedies.
Oh, yeah, like Superbad or Step Brothers
Yeah,
or oh,
exactly.
they're
Step
classic.
Brothers, classic. You know
Oh,
what's a great movie that was a very big tonal inspiration, which I brought up a lot in the initial meetings with with BuzzFeed and with Lionsgate and even with the crew
Hmm.
is it's more of an action comedy, but Game Night. Game Night is a perfect blending of an action movie and a comedy.
Who's
Jason
that with? Who's
Bateman,
that with? Jason Bateman?
Jason Bateman's in it. Billy Magnuson, Rachel McAdams. It's such a fun movie, but it has some like real stakes and real action and real violence and some twists. And it's like tonally that I feel like really, it's like something dramatic is happening, but it's happening to very funny people. And that was
Okay.
kind of what I I kind of wanted to bring to F Mary Kill.
I'm gonna check that out. I just typed it in. Game
Yeah,
night, you said game night?
yeah,
Okay. Well, I'll take a look. That's interesting.
great.
I'm always looking for movies like that because I miss it too. Even like This Is the End, which is amazing. Love that.
Yes.
Even Seth Rogen and all the stuff he does. But yeah, honestly, I had a great time talking to you today, Laura. Honestly, just talking about this movie and just everything about it, your career, female directors, just everything that we discussed. I think it really just it does encompass who you are as a person and just getting to know a little bit
Oh,
about your
thanks.
background too, with your love with true crime and stuff is really awesome. So again, congratulations on this film and really
Thank
appreciate the
you.
time today. I hope we can do this again soon.
Thanks. Yeah, I want to come on if you have Jake the Snake Roberts on again.
Sorry?
I want to come on if you have Jake the Snake
Yeah.
Roberts
Oh,
on again. I'm a huge WWF fan, old school WWF when it was still called the WWF. So I did see your Jake the Snake Roberts interview and I was very
wow.
interested.
Thank you so much for checking that out.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Awesome. Thanks so much,
Well,
Laura.
of
We'll be in
course,
touch.
nice meeting you.
I have you on Instagram too, so we'll be in touch.
Okay, great. Thanks,
Thanks.
Adam.